This is the personal history of Irmgard Rosenberg. The objectives of this is to pretty much tell you what growing up with her was like, how the Holocaust pretty much began, pre-Holocaust, post-Holocaust, where Irmgard and her family were sent, and then also what happened to her while all of this was going on. She was born to Elsie and Hers and Fritz Rosenberg. Pretty much grew up in Göttingen, Germany. Göttingen had a small Jewish population. There was only one synagogue. Irmgard was born to a family with 3 children. She was the only girl. She had an older brother and a younger brother, and then her and her siblings attended public school in the city. I wanted to give a little bit of information about the Holocaust just in case people weren't too familiar. The word Holocaust was used to describe pretty much the mass murder of more than 6 million Jews. And not only Jews, they went after other people, hippies, or they called them gypsies, as well as, gays, pretty much. This was led by the anti-Semitic Nazi leader Adolf Hitler, who viewed Jews as pretty much a threat. If you were a Jew, then you weren't pure, and therefore you were a threat to them, to the Germans that were pure. Pre-Holocaust, anti-Semitism did start before Adolf Hitler. There's evidence of this, and one of the examples is that the Roman authorities, all the way back to the 17th century, burned down the Jewish temple in Jerusalem because they were against the Jews and made them leave. Also, the war, the fact that they were defeated was put on the Jews. Somehow that was their fault because they weren't a pure race. After the Holocaust, once everyone was liberated, a lot of people feared their life. They didn't want to go home. There was trauma, probably mentally more than they were aware of, too, because they get so used to seeing dead people everywhere. They didn't know what it was like to have a life outside of these ghettos. And then also there were several relief groups that did start up after the Holocaust to try and help these people get back to where they were and how to live life now. Irmgard her parents owned a linen factory that pretty much she worked at while she was younger, grew up being in the factory, and then once the Germans took over, they did confiscate it in 1933. After that, her parents then fled to Hamburg, and she wasn't allowed to work because she was a Jew, but despite that, she knew her family needed money. Therefore, she worked as a sales apprentice at a department store. And with that money, she was able to help her family out with food and water, whatever they needed, with financial assistance. Occupied Germany. This happened, Adolf Hitler appointed chancellor in January of 1933. From there, he was able to get the Enabling Act passed, which pretty much told him he could isolate the Jews, boycott them, and that's where all the hate, not officially, but started. From there, the people were out to get the Jews, their families, their houses, businesses were ransacked, set on fire, just a lot of hate going on towards the Jews. And then Germany invaded Poland in September of 1939, which then started World War II, and that's where the ghettos and Jew segregation continued. Irmgard was deported. I know I previously said once the factory was confiscated that by the Nazis, then they relocated to Hamburg. They lived there for 8 years, living off the financial support from her working in the department store. And then from there, the Germans told her family that they needed to leave, and they were deported to the Minsk ghetto. The ghettos were pretty much an area of a rundown city that was bordered up by walls, fences, barbed wire, pretty much anything they could do to keep these people in. Um, they were starved, didn't have food, water. If they were given food or water, it was very minimal. As you can see by this photo, the people are literally starving to death. They also could get tuberculosis or typhus. This was going around the ghettos, and lots of people were dying from this. Estimated about 500,000 Jews from the ghettos did die of disease and starvation. The Minsk ghetto became occupied in June of 41. It's estimated that 100,000 Jews lived there. I wish I knew the size of the ghetto too. That would be helpful, knowing there's 100,000 people living there. I'm sure you can imagine how crammed it would be. By July of 42, they had pretty much killed a, a good majority of the people, leaving only 9,000. And then by October of 43, there was about 2,000 Jews left. It was the final liquidation, and the people were either killed or transported to another ghetto. From there, it was liberated in 44 July, but there was only a handful of Jews remaining, which were probably slave laborers or people in hiding. The outcome, unfortunately, of Irmgard and her parents is they were sent to the Minsk ghetto and never heard from again. Her older and youngest brother did survive. I know one of them was sent to another camp, and then the other one was able to get out. And then the Minsk ghetto was pretty much just a mass killing site. Just thousands and thousands of bodies lined up. And then I did find a website where her family has like a genealogy website trying to track down people that may be related or know more about her. I was only able to find 2 photos of her, unfortunately, and it makes me think that these are literally the only photos known of her. No family photos, nothing like that. And then I felt this document was pretty interesting as well. And that's about it. I'd say she was very brave. I was surprised that even though they weren't supposed to be working, she knew that she needed to provide for her family and got a job and did what she needed to do. It's unfortunate that not only for her, but her and her parents and everyone else that died from the Holocaust. Yeah, and that's it. Here is the works cited, so thank you.